The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hi folks, today on Aging Horizons we're coming to you from the 51st Annual Governor's Conference on Aging in Billings. And today's guest is going to be Dr. Rebecca Edelmeyer, and she's with the Alzheimer's Association. She's going to tell us all about the newest and the greatest information for Alzheimer's research, where it's going into the future, and how we can take care of ourselves. Join us.
I was diagnosed with diabetes in 1992 and I went into denial. It made me angry. I was a professional chef and I didn't want to change my eating style. It took me a long time to get serious about managing my health. My perspective changed from resentment to one of loving my body, the container for my spirit. Getting help from my diabetes educator supported my goals of improved self-care. I want to feel good and have a great life. My diabetes educator helps me do this.
As a Vietnam vet, returning home, nothing was easy.
Veteran Glenn Maynard and his wife Tracy.
For years, I've struggled with PTSD and related issues, including living in a camper.
Then Energy Share helped us with a deposit last year so we could get into our own place. I'm so glad we asked for help.
The only thing that got me through these times was my wife and the support of my community.
If you need help with your home energy bill, call or visit Energy Share, helping Montana families get through the winter since 1984.
We've been married for 57 years, and we've always been very, very close. And Bessie fell and broke her hip, and we put her in the nursing home. And I wanted to get her out of there in the worst way, because we married for better or for worse, and we're going to stay that way. And the personal care that comes in here and gives us a hand is equally as important as I am to her. Personal care is the answer to it all, and without it, we couldn't do it.
Good care is your right. In Montana, there's over 11,000 beds in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. If you or a family member needs assistance or help in obtaining information about care issues and placement options, call 1-800-332-2272. If you or a family member need information about Montana's long-term care resident rights, or if you need help solving a problem or a complaint about a nursing home or an assisted living facility, call us at 800-332-2272.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kimmy Everman, and as I said at the top, we're here at the 51st Annual Governor's Conference on Aging in Billings. And with us today, wonderful guest, Dr. Rebecca Edelmeyer, and she is the Director of Scientific Engagement for the Alzheimer's Association. Doctor, welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So to just get started, let's talk about dementia and Alzheimer's, because that's really our topic here. They're not exactly the same.
Right. So I get this question so much when I'm traveling around the country doing educational series. I get the question is, what is the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease? And the way I like to answer this is that dementia really is a term that encompasses a large collection of symptoms. It's both the cognitive symptoms that are experienced in neurodegenerative disease, that includes memory difficulties, but it also includes things like behavioral and psychiatric features like sleep dysfunction, or even agitation or apathy or psychoses. So dementia really is that umbrella term. Alzheimer's disease happens to be the most common cause of the disease. Vascular disease can cause dementia, Lewy body disease can cause dementia, as well as frontotemporal disease can cause dementia. So it's an umbrella term really to describe the collection of symptoms.
Sure. And we know that this is not normal aging. Dementia, that is not normal aging. Is that correct?
It's true. We all go through a process of aging as we move through life. And we know that there is a normal aging process. There are some slowing down of our abilities to remember, even the speed at which we interpret conversations, things like this. But abnormal aging is what is happening in a situation related to Alzheimer's disease or some of these other types of diseases that cause dementia.
What are the symptoms that we should be looking for in something like that?
Right, so when we're first starting to see some of those warning signs, we're starting to see maybe some difficulties in remembering certain words, maybe remembering places or things, remembering even people's names. Those are some of the warning signs. We're also seeing difficulties in speech patterns as well, and difficulties in sort of normal activities of daily life, maybe remembering how to operate even a common household appliance in your home. Those are some of those warning signs, and they're just an example. There's probably about 10 different warning signs that exist.
Right. And yet some of those things are normal aging, correct? So it's sort of a balance of figuring out which it really is.
Right, and I try to describe this as, sometimes people will say, well, I forget my keys all the time. Is this a sign?
See, me.
Is this a sign? And well, I think it could be a sign, but usually things that we're looking for are more aligned with, well, it's not necessarily that you forget where you put your keys, but it's when you pick your keys up, you actually forget what those objects are meant to do. And it's sort of an abnormal way to deal with a situation. And the more common these types of situations happen, and more frequently, I guess I should say, they happen, I think that's when the warning signs become more apparent.
So what are some of the causes of these situations?
Right, so we're still trying to learn what the underlying cause for Alzheimer's disease is and other dementias. We know that there's hallmark signs and changes that are happening in the brain, but we've actually learned that these are occurring 10 to 20 years before anyone actually shows any symptoms of cognitive decline.
Okay, that's actually good news, isn't it? Because you can use it to work through studies and things.
Exactly. So it can seem a bit daunting. It can seem a little bit insidious in terms of how the disease is progressing through our bodies. But it also allows us to identify people who are most at risk for developing the disease in the future if they're starting to show changes in their brains, biological changes that might be a risk factor for developing Alzheimer's disease.
Well, and I wanted to ask you, what are some risk factors?
So some of the risk factors include both things that we can change and things that maybe we can't change. So the things that we can't change in terms of risk factors include things like age. Age is the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. But it's not, as we mentioned, normal aging process. We know that genes, as well as family history, which includes genetics and shared lifestyle and environmental factors, they're also things that can be risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. However, modifiable risk factors are something that we're learning more and more about every day through research. Things like cardiovascular disease, things like traumatic brain injury, education, social and cognitive stimulation. These are things that might be modifiable throughout a lifetime that we could think about ways to intervening across a life course.
That sounds very hopeful and very encouraging. You know, in our last couple of minutes in this segment, I just wanted to ask about the women that get Alzheimer's, because it seems like more women are getting Alzheimer's. Is that true?
It is true. What we do understand about the prevalence disease today is that 2/3 of people living with Alzheimer's disease in the United States are actually women.
Wow.
Right, and we don't yet know the underlying causes of that, whether they're biological or social aspects. We're still doing more research to better understand that. We also see a higher prevalence in African Americans and Hispanics. We know they're more at risk, probably due to some of those modifiable lifestyle risk factors that are in play, other comorbidities that they're living with, in addition to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, that may be playing a role. But we have to continue to do more research in diverse populations to better understand the root causes of the disease.
And the patients or the beneficiaries, clients, whoever, whatever you call them, they need to reach out if anything is going on, correct?
Absolutely. We would really advocate that all individuals are advocating for themselves, especially at the level of the doctor's office. They're having conversations with their families, and if they have any questions ever, they can always reach out to the Alzheimer's Association.
Yes.
We have a helpline that is around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, through Christmas and all kinds of holidays. If people have questions about what they're experiencing or how to plan for the future, they should reach out to us. We'd be happy to help.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that really is a very important resource for people. You know, folks, you don't have to be afraid about Alzheimer's. Learn. Get all the information that you can. They're doing all kinds of study. They're looking at all kinds of research, and it's going to be cured one day. So stay with us. We have a whole lot more to talk about. We want you to be the expert on Alzheimer's disease.
Suddenly I couldn't speak.
I knew something was wrong. I called 911 immediately.
My arm didn't hurt, it just stopped working.
I knew the signs of a stroke. I called 911.
Know these warning signs, and if they happen to you or anyone with you, call 911. Treatment within 3 hours from the start of symptoms can make a difference. Stroke is a major cause of disability. It is also highly preventable. Learn the signs and act immediately. For more information, call 1-888-4STROKE.
With as many as 1 in 10 Americans at risk for Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia, chances are someone you know and love will receive that diagnosis. When that happens, you may well feel devastated, but know that you are not alone. Help is available. You don't have to face dementia by yourself. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
I have so many questions about power of attorney.
Well, some powers of attorney are for finances and others are for healthcare decisions.
A power of attorney designates an agent who would make decisions on your behalf.
While making a power of attorney, you have the ability to control your agent's power.
You also have the ability to decide when that POA would take effect.
Wait, am I giving away all my rights?
Power of attorney isn't a license to make any decision for you, just those that you've specified.
Your agent should be somebody that's working in your best interest, but it should also be somebody that you would trust.
What if they try to abuse their power?
Protective measures like third-party accounting, secondary signatures, defined spending and gifting limits can help protect against financial exploitation. An agent's powers can always be limited by a customized power of attorney, and they can be revoked by you or the court if the power of attorney is abused.
So carefully drafted estate planning documents can help ensure that your finances are monitored, but not abused.
If you or someone you know is being exploited, please report to Aging Services Bureau at 844-277-9300 or the Legal Service Developer at 1-800-332-2272. This message sponsored by the DPHHS Aging Service Bureau.
Hi folks, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here at the 51st Annual Governor's Conference on Aging talking about Alzheimer's with Dr. Rebecca Edelmeyer. And Doctor, one of the things that I think we all really wonder about is, where are we at in terms of a cure or anything getting really taken care of with Alzheimer's disease?
I have to tell you, I'm more optimistic than I've ever been before in the progress that we're making in Alzheimer's disease and all dementia research. We have more federal funding that's available. The scientists are really making progress in terms of how we're continuing to devote time, energy, and dollars to finding a cure or finding something that's going to slow, stop, or prevent this disease.
Right. Well, and so is there anything, you know, I think you've sort of said 10 to 20 years when it starts, before it really starts to show up. Is there any kind of testing or anything that they can start to do?
I think that's actually one of the biggest areas where we're making progress today, where the tools and technologies that we now have available to scientists and clinicians to really study changes that are happening in the body in real time, like through brain imaging or like through looking at cerebral spinal fluid, which is what we would get from a lumbar puncture, or even blood.
Yeah.
We're developing some of these new technologies to better model the disease, its progression, its trajectory over time, so that we can better figure out how to treat the disease also in the future. Yeah. But it used to be that we couldn't actually identify some of these types of markers until people ended up passing away from Alzheimer's disease. So now that we have the ability to study people in real time, we're making great progress.
Yeah, and I guess I think that folks are going to feel better reaching out earlier anyway, so it's a great way or direction to go in trying to figure it out. Also, I wouldn't mind having a blood test at the doctor's office for this. If we could just figure it out that easily, that would be so great.
Exactly, and I think that that's the idea behind what we're trying to do in terms of developing what we call biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease and all dementias. So biomarkers are really just a way to study change in the body over time. It can help be a reliable predictor of disease or disease progression, but it could also tell us a lot about what might be happening in our brain. So you can think of a biomarker as things like cholesterol for heart disease, glucose, or even glucose for insulin for glucose intolerance or diabetes. These are biomarkers that have been studied for decades, years, across millions of people. We need those same types of biomarkers to help us predict who's going to get Alzheimer's disease and follow their trajectory over time. So you're right, we need to develop tools that are going to be low cost, that are not invasive, and they're going to be scalable across the globe.
And you know that people are not afraid to go have done. You know, because medical procedures like that can often be frightening for folks.
They can be frightening, but we also are trying to educate individuals in the fact that this type of information will be very helpful for their physicians once we get all of these types of tools available and reimbursed by insurance. That's another hurdle that we still have to cross. We have to get to the point where the scientists and the clinicians are satisfied that these types of tools are going to be helpful and that they're reliable and accurate. But after that, we also have to get to the point where we make them available to all, so that they can be incorporated into clinical practice.
So is there anything that we could be doing in those, years prior to it really showing up that would help our chances of avoiding Alzheimer's?
A great question. So there's a lot of work that's happening on two different fronts, I would say. We're trying to develop treatments that include both medicines, but also maybe lifestyle interventions. As the scientists continue to work on what those medicines will look like, the ways that we could modify the disease in its path to slow it or arrest it in its path, we're going to continue to have to look at ways to reduce risk across our lifestyle. And we've started to see some activity in clinical trials that are really looking at how modifiable risk factors could play a role in decreasing our risk for cognitive decline. The Alzheimer's Association is actually leading one of the largest clinical trials of its kind that's ever to be conducted in the United States, called the U.S. Pointer Study. It's going to be looking at a multi-domain lifestyle intervention, looking at better management of cardiovascular health, diet, also physical activity, and social and cognitive stimulation to see if there's a way that we could decrease our risk for developing cognitive decline in the future.
And I guess I can imagine that people would really want to get on board with that, because every one of us knows someone who has lost their life to Alzheimer's or a dementia-related situation, and nobody wants that to happen.
No, nobody wants that to happen. We don't want people to feel alone, but we also want to be able to provide the best recipe for success when it comes to risk reduction. And that's why we think that from a leadership perspective, the Alzheimer's Association knows that this is the type of trial that needs to be done. The National Institute of Aging has also recognized the importance of these kinds of trials, because not only are they going to be looking at cognition over time, but we're also going to be measuring all of these biomarkers that will help to tell a story of what the disease might look like and how to predict who's most at risk.
So should we be doing crosswords and Sudoku and all those kinds of things to keep our brain engaged?
You know what? Those are some of the things that we would also recommend. Challenging yourself every day. So we have something that we call 10 Ways to Love Your Brain. These are evidence-based recommendations that we would suggest to you that we think are going to be, I shouldn't say we think, really the field thinks are going to potentially decrease your risk for developing cognitive decline or dementia in the future. And some of those things include social as well as cognitive stimulation and education. Challenging your brain in new ways every day that you haven't done before, that are outside of your routine, may possibly help to decrease our risk for cognitive decline in the future.
Well, it couldn't hurt. I mean, right? It's probably something that would be helpful to you just for your daily sort of cognitive health.
Exactly.
Right?
We want people to enjoy what they're doing. It doesn't have to be a prescriptive in terms of what particular types of cognitive training you should be doing at this point. We don't actually know that answer yet. So what we can tell people is do something that's challenging. Pick up a new instrument, maybe a new language. Really do types of activities that are also going to be social, because that's very, very important.
That sounds wonderful to me, and all of our retirees can fill their hours with lots of fun things to do like that. Folks, we're so glad you're here with us, sharing the conference and sharing the great topics of information that we have. We have some more to talk about. Alzheimer's and dementia, big topic, and we want you to know everything we can possibly give you, so stay with us.
Crackling fire, good warm. Forest fire, bad warm. Keeping the home fires burning, good warm. Watching the home burn, bad warm. Your family deserves the kind of warm that comes from being able to pay the heating bills. Whether you're a homeowner or a renter, the Low Income Energy Assistance Program may be able to help. Call today to find out if you're eligible. We can help you get comfortable with winter's high energy costs.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
You sure you can see?
Yeah.
Are the headlights on?
Yes.
Do we need chains?
No.
Need to slow down?
You know, you're probably right.
Winterize your vehicle, then winterize your mind. Stay clear of snowplows until they pull over, and it's safe to pass. Drive safely and arrive alive.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here with Dr. Rebecca Edelmeyer and we're talking about Alzheimer's. Doctor, one of the things that I think is really important about this topic is just getting involved, right?
Exactly.
And how can people do that?
So there's many ways to get involved. I think one of the things that people don't recognize is that the Alzheimer's Association really is here for everyone across the nation and really around the globe. And there's things that you could do to get involved related to volunteering. There's a local chapter here in Montana if people are interested. We have walks to raise awareness and walks to raise dollars that go towards care and support and programs and education, but also the research. So people can get involved in terms of even volunteering for clinical trials. If they want to be a part of the solution, they can help actually support the research themselves.
Wow, that would be pretty awesome. I wouldn't mind doing that.
It's pretty awesome. You can actually find ways to volunteer for clinical trials at Trial Match. It's a free trials or clinical trials matching service on our website at alz.org, and it's very simple to do. You can fill out a profile, and it helps to find clinical trials that might be a right fit for you. You can volunteer for a caregiver trial, or even trials that are looking at an exercise intervention or a treatment trial. But getting people involved in clinical trials is one of the biggest hurdles for research. So I would suggest if you want to be a part of the solution, you could get involved in some research and clinical trials.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Now, in terms of the Alzheimer's Association, what do you think the impact has been on, number one, the raising the level of awareness, getting people involved, getting resources? What's that impact been like?
I think it's been amazing. I think we've really increased the awareness across the nation, across the world, in terms of what is known and what is not known and how to care and support those living with Alzheimer's disease and all dementias. We want to make sure that that awareness continues to increase, because those conversations that are being had by families and by individuals with their doctors, it's something that we believe that is going to help us with more early detection and diagnosis of this disease. And it also decreases the stigma around Alzheimer's disease as well. We want those conversations to be happening across families at the dinner table.
Right. Now, research, very, very important, as we've talked about, and we know that the Alzheimer's Association is a leading investor in research. How's that going, and where are we going into the future?
Absolutely. So we are actually the largest nonprofit funder of research in the globe, and we like to say in the world. But honestly, it's an amazing thing that the association's doing. It's been a part of its mission since its onset in 1980, research and care and support on a global scale. And so we actually fund a number of research initiatives. We have about $165 million active today in 500 projects in 20 27 countries. So this is a little bit different than what the National Institute of Health can do when they're funding research around our country with taxpayer dollars. But we work from both ends. We're funding research through many Alzheimer's Association projects, but we also advocate intensely at the level of the federal government to increase those research dollars that go to the National Institute of Health to support academic scientists and clinicians around our country to continue to do that much needed research.
Now, you're the first person that's talked to me about the global impact of it all. This is not just a situation in the United States, is it?
It's not. You know, the estimates are a little bit difficult. We're still trying to define the disease across the globe, but what we kind of understand today is I believe there's somewhere around 50 million people that are living with Alzheimer's disease across the globe. We know that there's 5.8 million Americans today living with Alzheimer's disease.
How many?
5.8 million Americans, which is projected to go to nearly 14 million by 2050 if we do not find something to slow this down. So we do believe in the global nature of our work. We don't necessarily care where the next best discovery comes from, where the next treatment comes from. We just care that we get there. So we have to fund those best ideas.
Right. And let's just talk for a couple of minutes about reaching out again, because I know the folks that watch the show, they watch it because we provide resources. The hotline at the Montana Alzheimer's Association, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there are multiple interactions that you can have with individuals on that hotline. We have a lot of levels of support there. We also have master's level clinicians that are there for you even in your toughest times. But we have support that can be given that's related to financial services or connecting you to doctors or physicians or education or resources in your local communities. We don't want people to feel alone. I think the worst thing we hear is when people say that they never knew that the Alzheimer's Association existed. These are free services that we want everyone to be able to use.
Right. And in terms of reaching out, like you said, there's more than just the phone. There's also the website where there's plenty of other kinds of resources.
Absolutely. Lots of resources on our website. There's a lot of educational tools even on our website. The ability to find different events like the Walk to End Alzheimer's events that we're in the middle of walk season right now. We're raising dollars for care and support and research all around the country right now. But a lot of those dollars, again, some of them will be spent here in the United States, but some of them will also go to global initiatives that are going to the best minds and to develop the biggest gaps in the knowledge related to Alzheimer's research. So.
Because as you said, it doesn't matter who comes up with the cure.
It doesn't
it's
matter.
That they get to that place.
I think we would all agree on that.
Yeah, and
so.
you're pretty positive that we're going to get there.
I do believe we're going to get to a point where we have a treatment for these diseases. We are, I think, not far away from that. With the development of the technologies and tools, we didn't even have this 15 years ago. So this has really launched us into a golden era, I would say, a golden age of scientific research for Alzheimer's and dementia. And the impact is being felt, I think, by the scientists around the world. They now have more research dollars to fund those innovative and out-of-the-box ideas that they never had before. So I'm very optimistic.
And we can't forget all the good education that the Alzheimer's Association does. They're putting out things all the time that help people understand this disease and how to reach out for help.
Absolutely.
Dr. Edelman, thank you so much for being with us. This was a great interview and we really appreciate your time. And folks, thanks for being with us. We're here at the 51st Governor's Conference on Aging and we had a lot of fun having you with us today.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.